There are sins that die with the person who committed them. And then there are sins so deep, so deliberate, so soaked in betrayal that they do not stay buried. They follow, they wait, they collect. This is the story of the Okafor family. A family blessed with land, wealth, and children. A family that had everything until the night their grandfather did something the earth itself refused to forget. It started with a man named Okafor Dike. He was not a bad man in the way that stories usually tell it. He did not cackle in the dark or sacrifice children at crossroads. He was charming, generous at festivals, known for his loud laugh and his wide farm. But Okafor Dike had one disease that lived quietly inside him his whole life. Greed. Not the desperate greed of a hungry man. The comfortable greed of a man who already has enough and still wants more. His neighbor was a man named Ezike. Old Ezike, the village called him. A quiet man with a small farm, a blind wife, and a daughter named Ngozi, who was the light of his life. Ezike's farm was small, but it sat on the most fertile strip of land in the entire village. The soil there was red and deep. Anything planted in it grew twice as fast and twice as full. Okafor Dike had wanted that land for 20 years. He offered to buy it. Ezike refused gently. The land had been in his family for 4 generations. He offered more. Ezike refused again. So Okafor Dike stopped asking and started planning. It took him 3 years to set it up properly. He befriended the village record keeper. He paid a man in the next village to pose as a witness. He forged a document claiming that Ezike's land had originally belonged to the Okafor family and had been taken unlawfully 2 generations ago. Then he brought the case before the elders. Old Ezike had no documents. He had only his word, and the word of neighbors who were afraid of Okafor Dike's influence. One by one, the neighbors went quiet. The record keeper supported the forged papers. The false witness testified. The elders ruled in Okafor Dike's favor. Old Ezike stood in the middle of the gathering, a small old man with a walking stick, and looked at Okafor Dike for a long time. He did not shout. He did not weep. He said only this: "You have taken the land my father's father bled for. You have used lies to bury truth, and you have done this knowing I have no one to fight for me." He paused. "So, I will not fight you." He turned and walked away. That night, old Ezike went to the shrine at the edge of the village. He was not a man who cursed people. In his whole life, he had never asked the ancestors for anything dark. But that night, he knelt before the shrine and spoke for a long time. He did not ask for Okafor Dike to suffer. He asked for justice. He asked that what had been taken be remembered, that the lie not be allowed to become truth, that the Okafor blood carried the weight of what had been done until a child of that line found the courage to undo it. Then he went home, put his blind wife to bed, and died quietly in his sleep before morning. The village said it was old age, but those who had been at the shrine that night said the ground had trembled when he spoke. Okafor Dike lived well for another 15 years after taking the land. His farm flourished, his family grew. He had 3 sons and watched them grow strong and proud. But in his last years, strange things began. His eldest son, Emeka, built a house on Ezike's land. On the night he moved in, he dreamt of an old man standing at the edge of the farm, pointing at the soil and weeping. He woke up sweating. He told no one. 3 months later, Emeka's business partner vanished with all their shared money. Everything Emeka had invested was gone overnight. He started again, built it back up, lost it again to a flood that only touched his property while neighbors on both sides were untouched. He tried a third time, this time a fire. Emeka died at 50, exhausted and confused, having never understood why the ground beneath him always seemed to shift. Okafor himself died 1 year later. His last words, according to the wife who sat beside him, were spoken to someone who was not in the room. "I did not think it would follow," he said. "I did not think it would follow this far." Then he was gone. Emeka's children grew up hearing only that their grandfather had been a great man who built the family's wealth. Nobody told them about Ezike. Nobody mentioned the shrine. Nobody spoke of the forged papers gathering dust somewhere in the record keeper's old house. His son Tobena was sharp and ambitious. He studied hard, moved to the city, became a lawyer of all things, a man who worked with documents and truth for a living, not knowing that his grandfather's greatest weapon had been a false document. Tobena did well for years. Then the losses started. A case he could not lose, he lost. A client he had served faithfully accused him of fraud. He was innocent, but the accusation followed him like a smell, and his practice never recovered. His marriage crumbled, not dramatically, just slowly, quietly, the way water wears down stone, until one morning his wife looked at him across the breakfast table and said she did not know who he was anymore. He had 3 children. All of them loved him, but all of them carried a restlessness he could not explain and could not fix. The eldest daughter, Adana, started having dreams at the age of 12. Always the same dream: an old man on a farm, red soil, a walking stick, pointing at something buried in the ground. She told her father. He told her it was just a dream. He did not tell her that he had been having the same dream since he was 15. The pattern repeated. It did not always look the same. Sometimes it was financial collapse. Sometimes it was relationships that broke without clear reason. Sometimes it was a specific kind of bad luck, the kind that feels personal, targeted, like something is watching and waiting for you to build something just so it can knock it down. The family stopped talking about it openly after the 3rd generation. It became the thing they knew but did not name. Bad luck, a dark cloud. Some said the family had enemies. Some said it was the evil eye of neighbors jealous of their land. None of them said the word that the oldest grandmother whispered alone at night when she thought no one could hear. Iyi ajo, a curse. By the 4th generation, the family had scattered. Some in the city, some abroad, some back in the village pretending the land was just land and the past was just the past. But the dreams kept coming. And Ezekiel's farm, that red, fertile strip of soil, had not grown anything properly in 40 years. Every family that tried to farm it found the soil dead. The crops would start and then wither. Farmers said the ground felt wrong under their feet, like it was holding its breath. Her name was Kelechi. She was 26, born in the city, had never lived in the village, knew her family history the way most people know it, in fragments and photographs and things adults stopped explaining when children walked into the room. She came back to the village because her grandmother was dying and had asked for her specifically. The old woman was 91, sharp eyes in a folded face. She held Kelechi's hand for a long time before she spoke. "You have the dreams," the grandmother said. It was not a question. Kelechi nodded slowly. "I have had them since I was a child. An old man, a farm. He is always pointing at something." The grandmother closed her eyes. Then she told Kelechi everything. Kelechi sat and listened without interrupting. She was a lawyer, like her great-grandfather Tobena had been, and she knew how to hold her face still when something surprised her. When the grandmother finished, Kelechi said, "Where are the original documents, the real ones, from Ezike's family?" The grandmother smiled for the first time. "I have been waiting 70 years for someone in this family to ask that question." It took Kelechi 8 months. She tracked down Ezike's granddaughter, an old woman named Chidinma, who still lived 2 villages away. Chidinma had spent her whole life knowing the land had been stolen, and knowing that there was nothing she could do about it. When Kelechi sat across from her and said, "I am Okafor Dike's great-great-granddaughter, and I am here because what was done to your family was wrong, and I want to make it right." Chidinma stared at her for a very long time. Then she began to cry. Not from sadness, from something older and more exhausted than sadness. The crying of someone who has been holding their breath for decades and has finally been told they can exhale. The legal process was complicated. The land had changed hands twice since Okafor Dike. There were new documents to challenge, new witnesses to find, old records to unbury. Kelechi did all of it. She used her own money. She took time away from her city practice. Her colleagues thought she was losing her mind. She did not stop. On the day the land was formally returned to Chidinma's family, Kelechi stood at the edge of that red soil and felt something she had no word for in English. In Igbo, the closest word was idima, a settling, a rightness, like something that had been at an angle for a very long time had finally been set straight. That night, she did not dream. For the first time in 26 years, she did not dream. The family noticed the change before they had words for it. Small things at first. A business deal that went through cleanly. A relationship that did not collapse under invisible weight. A child who slept peacefully through the night without waking up afraid. Then, larger things. The restlessness that had followed them for generations began to lift slowly, the way fog burns off in the morning. Not all at once, but steadily. The land, Ezike's land, began to grow things again. Chidinma's granddaughter planted cassava the following season. It came up full and strong and red-rooted, the way the old people said it used to grow before everything went wrong. Kelechi went back to the city. She built a practice known specifically for helping families recover land that had been taken unjustly. She was not rich from it, but she slept well. She kept a photograph on her desk of old Ezike which Chidinma had given her. A small man with a walking stick and quiet eyes. She said good morning to him every day when she sat down to work. She felt, though she could not prove it, that he heard her. 7 generations. That is how long it took. Not because the ancestors were cruel, but because for 6 generations, not one person in that family had the courage to look at the truth directly and say, "This was wrong, and I will be the one to fix it." The curse was never about punishment, it was about memory. The earth does not forget what is done to it. The ancestors do not forget what is asked of them. And injustice, real injustice, does not dissolve just because the person who committed it is dead. But here is the other side of that truth. It only takes one person willing to go back, to look at the ugly thing clearly, to make it right without making excuses. One person can end what 7 generations could not outrun. You may not be responsible for what your family did before you, but you may be the one the ancestors have been waiting for, the one with enough clarity, enough courage, enough love for what is right to finally close the account. The question is not what was done. The question is what you will do when you find out. This has been an African folktale. If this story made you think about something in your own family that needs to be faced, you already know what to do. And if you found this story, perhaps it found you for a reason. Please like, share, and subscribe.